Should I sell my condo? That's a great question, and by the end of this video, I want to show you some specific tools that you can use to help evaluate that question. Hey friends, I'm Paul Haley, Toronto realtor, investor, educator, and speaker, and I want to help you think about if you should sell a condo or not. A client asked me the other day, should she sell her condo? That's hard to say. And looking to buy an investment property or a freehold house to live in, or should she just buy another condo? You know what? And that's a great question, and I get that question a lot. And oftentimes it's in terms of affordability. Should I sell my condo to be able to afford more house? So the first thing you need to know is I'm not the kind of realtor that's going to tell you to sell, right? My business is really trying to add value to what you want to do, and it's to look out for you on your property journey. So I don't always think selling is the right idea. Now, having said that, I think often selling a condo is a great idea, and I'll get into why. And usually selling freehold, I rarely recommend that. Okay? So, to help you answer the question, first, let's dive into the numbers. Okay, to put it really simply, cap rate usually sucks on condos. Well, what do you mean by that, Paul Haley? So really, what that means is the cap rate measures the income to the value of the property, and generally for condos, that rate is significantly lower than for freeholds, for houses, okay? And this is where it actually gets a little bit confusing for people, because oftentimes they bought the condo a long time ago, they have a mortgage on a much lower value, so they're cash flowing, so they're like, that doesn't make sense, I'm cash flowing right now. Listen, I understand, but what we're looking at is today's value of the property. How will that generate income versus alternative uses of that capital, if that makes sense. So we're looking at it, in a very investor-specific way. Now I'm going to go through some numbers here. If you want those numbers, shoot me an email and I'll send you the spreadsheets and also the listings of the properties that I'm talking about. That'll help you kind of crunch the numbers and go through it. Hopefully that's hugely helpful. Okay, so let's look at a condo example. So I look at a condo that recently sold for $600,000. Now that condo would generate $2,100 a month. So I looked at all, what that similar condo type rents for in that building, and it's $2,100 per month. So the net operating income, so that's the income minus the expenses to run the property, so property tax, insurance, and maintenance fees specifically for most condos, is about $16,500 per year. So that means you divide the cap rate divided by the $600,000, and that's 2.74%. That's the cap rate. And now when you're looking at investment properties, typically today you're looking between 4 and 5%. So that's really low. And the cash flow on this property is negative to the tune of about $400 bucks a month, and the cash on cash return, so we're still paying down mortgage, right? So the cash on cash return in this case is around 4.7%. And so I actually checked on this property, and the previous owner had bought it for $480,000 in 2019, and assuming the rents were the same and everything is the same, that means the cash flow would be zero on this property. So people would get confused and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm net neutral on my cash flow. What's the problem here, right? And I just threw out a whole bunch of calculations, cash and cash, cap rate, all that kind of stuff. If you want to see a video on what all those mean and how you can calculate them, check that out. It's one of these corners. Check it out. Okay, so let's compare those numbers to a triplex I just bought for some clients. So we bought the triplex for $1,050,000. It generates income of $6,000 per month. Sorry, the revenue is $6,000 per month in rents, right? And then so the net operating income, so that's after expenses. Now there are more expenses on a house, and this one's, power, gas, water, taxes, you got to plan for maintenance, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so all that stuff, your net income is about close to $60,000 a year. Make sense? So the cap rate on this one is 5.6%, which is great because, like I said, we're looking for anything up to 5%, and this one was a bit higher, so that is great. That means, we're really knocking it out of the park in terms of an investment. And even better, the cash flow is $1,800 a month, almost, in your pocket, and the cash on cash return is close to 17%. So to summarize what that all means, so now while the triplex costs about 1.75 times the value of the condo, right? It generates, the income is 3.58 times the income of the condo. That's why it is a much better investment, if that makes sense. And yes, you're probably thinking, yeah, Paul Haley, but I don't have, a 20% down on $1 million freehold. That's true, and everybody's case is a little bit different, but I just want to show you how to look at the numbers. And, like this house I'm actually talking about, I paired two potential, one person wanted to live there and one investor. I paired them together. Separately, they couldn't have bought it, but together they could. So that's another option, is buying a property like this with someone else, if that makes sense. And oftentimes, this is why I say, it's better to sell your condo if that gets you more house, because the net income is so much higher per dollar on a house than on a condo. Enough said. I get it, Paul Haley. Stop talking about that. Okay, so what did I tell, my client that wanted to potentially sell a condo, buy a freehold? There is one more thing we need to talk about before, we really make this decision, and that is, what type of market are you in the properties where you're buying and where you're selling. So what I mean by that is, we look at, is it a buyer's market, is it a neutral market, or is it a seller's market? A buyer's market is where the sales to new listing ratio is 40% or below. A seller's market is when that is 60% or above, and neutral is in between. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So really, we're looking at, if there's lots of inventory compared to sales, the market tends to favor buyers, and if there's less inventory compared to sales, it tends to favor sellers, and it's much easier to sell. Hopefully that makes complete sense. So now, unfortunately, the time we're in right now, it's actually getting into a strong buyer's market in condos, and it's still a strong seller's market in freehold. So if you're trying to sell a condo and buy a property, it's difficult right now, right? Because, you're probably not going to get as much as you want, or the property's going to sit on the market for a bit longer when you're selling a condo, and it's very competitive when you're buying freehold. So these are things you need to think about. And, not too far in the distant past, condos and freehold were actually both in fairly strong sellers markets. So it was easy. You could buy something, you could wait to sell, buy something, and then sell your condo, because you knew you could sell it quickly. That's changed a little bit. Or better yet, if freeholds were in a buyer's market and condos were in a seller's market, that would be amazing, very easy to execute. So just something for you to think about. Okay, so what did I tell my client? That is a great question. So actually what I told my client was this. I gave her another option. The other option is, why don't you refinance the condo and buy freehold, and then when the condo market comes back, when immigration comes back to the city, then look at selling it, either to change your cash situation or potentially buy more freehold if that's available to you. And yes, this requires, working with a good mortgage broker to be able to do that, because it's, it's complicated now. You're going to rent out your condo, you're going to move into a house, you're going to rent out some units in the house, or maybe you're just doing it all as investment. Who knows? But you definitely need someone on your trusted team, not just me, but also a great mortgage broker, and I can help you, connect you with that if that's something you're looking for. Now, just one more consideration when you're thinking about, tenanting a property, and then a condo specifically, and then using it, refinancing and use it to buy the freehold, and you want to sell your condo down the road. Condos are harder to sell with tenants in them. You know, we can talk about that if you're interested. It's just something sort of to keep in mind. You know, if you do want to sell it down the road, what that looks like. Or you can just wait until the tenant leaves and then market the property. Lots of options, but happy to kind of sit down and chat through those. So I hope you found that hugely helpful. If you like this video, please leave a comment and like it. And please subscribe so you get updated when new content hits the airwaves every single week. And if you have any questions, if you want to talk about real estate or what you should do with your condo, you know, listen, you should know me by now. I'm not going to pressure you to sell when you don't need to sell. I'm going to give you options. I'm going to look at what's best for you. So shoot me an email, paul@paulhaley.ca. Talk soon. Video, I want to show you some specific. A client asked me the other day, should she sell her she sells seashells. Should she... Blah. Nice, I got that right.